Welcome to our newest webinar, The 7 Principles of the Pickleball Guru. I'm here with Prem Carnot, the Pickleball Guru, author of the best-selling book Smart Pickleball, and the original traveling pickleball coach.
Welcome, Guru Nation. Hope you're doing and having a fantastic summer wherever you are.
I'm kind of surprised we haven't done a webinar on this yet. We're going to go through your 7 principles. We refer to them as your teaching or coaching, but it could very well be your 7 principles of Smart Pickleball.
I totally agree. That's the fundamentals of it. Is the several principles are very important. I'm surprised myself. We never did it.
And if you were to implement all these principles or strategies, or even some of these, your game is going to improve greatly.
I have no doubt about it. It's some of those basic fundamentals are very important, and then if you get those principles in place, you definitely are going to be a much better player.
And before we get into this, give us your obligatory "if something works for you" line, Prem.
Yes, something which I often tell is like, whatever works for you, please keep it. I don't recommend you to let it go just because someone told you to do so. If you have something in your game which works perfectly fine, please keep it and add anything you're going to learn from me or from anyone else you're learning through. Just add that to your arsenal. There's no one size fit all type of thing.
And that's a good point, because even aside from the 7 principles that we're going to talk about, there was this one gentleman that wrote in on our blog, and he said, I'm doing like 70% on my third shot drop. He's got a little bit of backspin on it, so he's very successful with it. And someone came up and says, no, you ought to be doing it this way. And he's like, well, what's your take on this? And I said, if it's working for you, why would you change? Why would you try and change on something like that?
Yeah, keep the things which work and add anything else which you can to your arsenal. That's as simple as that, I could say.
And we're going to start off with the first one right now, and that's paddle up. You've said this before, actually, thousands of times at your clinics and boot camps. So quick refresher about why you want to keep your paddle up, Prem.
It's pretty simple, straightforward. Keeping your paddle up means you're going to hit any ball which is coming to you on a downward trajectory rather than hitting it on an upward trajectory. So most balls, when you're at, say, for example, at the non-volley zone line, if someone's hitting at you, if you have your paddle up, you're able to block it, you can punch it, you have more options, and you're hitting a downward trajectory. But if your paddle is down and if someone is hitting you, say even to your body, and you're trying to protect it, you're probably coming up on that point. You're most likely to put that ball up, and that's not a good idea. So, keep your paddle up. I'll guarantee you 80% of your game will improve, no matter what your skill levels are, on every ball.
On every ball. And number 2 on our list is serve deep. Now, some people use short serves that barely clear the net. Why do you recommend serving deep, and why is it so effective?
The idea of serving deep, knowing that one of your opponents is already at the non-volley zone line and the other person who's returning is at the baseline, and if you serve deep, you're forcing your opponent to basically, have to step back and try and hit a better ball. But if you hit a short serve, as you said, you're actually bringing your opponent, the opponent who was at the baseline, to the non-volley zone line quickly, and you want to keep them as farther away from it as possible. And if you can do that, that's great. But if you bring them in, it's a difficult one. But having said that, it all depends. Like if you have an opponent who's challenged for that particular day, or for days where they can't move as quickly and fast, then hitting a short serve would be effective. But hitting a deep serve allows you a lot more time to organize yourself. So I think I would say serve deep as much as possible.
And this is something the pros do. And on our webinar page in the show notes, I've got a link to a recent U.S. Open match between Puppet Master Nelson, Joey Farias, and he's going up against, or they're going up against Respetsky and Kern. And Nelson just launches this serve so high in the air. It looks like it's at least 15, maybe even 20 feet up there. And I believe you spoke to Marston later on, and he said he couldn't do anything with it. He so
Absolutely.
wanted to tee off on it, but he just could not do anything with Tim's serve.
You know, you'd be very surprised to see a lot of pros. You know, they might have a lot of serves and arsenal serving techniques in their arsenal, but they go to generally, not having to be that high as Tim did, but they are always going to hit a much higher serve, which clears the net pretty decently and keep it deep. And that's the key, and trying to keep it deeper enough so that they can attack if they want to. So serving deep is a very important one. And hitting a deep serve like the one you mentioned, there's no speed in it and no pace in it. You really can't tee off, because if you're trying to tee off on a ball like that, you're probably hitting the fence. So most of the time, you're pretty much handcuffed and trying to return it back so that you can get back into some sort of position, in a ready position. So hitting a deep serve like that is a very effective one. And there are good reasons why even great players like Tim Nelson and use it quite frequently.
And as I alluded to earlier, some people have serves that just clear the net, some have really hard serves, and some have power serves. And just because you use a high loopy serve that drops deep, you may also have one of those hard angle serves or soft angle serves where it's just right in that corner, right up near the kitchen, where people just can't even get to it. Like you said, if it works for you, keep doing it.
Absolutely, I would definitely recommend people to keep serving. Keep changing the serve. If they have a few things in your arsenal as far as service goes, or any other part of your game goes, keep using it and mix it up. Just don't get very predictable with your shot. A good deep serve is a very effective one. That's all I can say. I'm not saying that it's the only one to do, but it's a very effective one to do.
And before we get to number three, one of the fundamentals that you teach at your clinics is the serve. They spend a lot of time practicing different serves, especially the high and deep serve. And in addition to that, in addition to the serve, you do a lot of returns, dinks, drops, and net play at the clinics. So this is a time for us to quickly mention our upcoming clinic schedule. We're going to be in Redmond, Oregon, September 16th and 17th, Dallas, Texas, October 22nd, 23rd, Tucson, Arizona, November 12th and 13th, Vero Beach on January 7th and 8th, and January 21st and 22nd, and then Richmond, Virginia, May 12th and 13th. Clinics are more for the 2.0 to 3.5 players looking to get those fundamentals down, especially if they just started playing pickleball.
Yeah, and even beginners can come into these clinics, because the beginners are basically, they're actually a clean slate. It's an easier way to get them to get to play, get the fundamentals in place, which will allow them to have less bad habits going forward.
And down below in the YouTube, and this will also be a link in the show notes over on our webinar page, if you click that show more text down below on the YouTube page, you'll find a link for all our clinics. So you can head on over there at pickleballguru.com and just let you know they're filling up quickly. And if you register by midnight on Saturday, there's going to be an additional 10% off. All you have to use is coupon code webinar, and we'll have a link for that down in the show notes, like I said. So back to our regularly scheduled programming. We're up to number three. And like we talked about on number two, which is serve deep, what I think is even more important is that you return deep.
Again, yeah, returning deep is always a very good option, because you got to know that the serving team basically has to let the ball bounce because of the double bounce rule in pickleball. So when that happens, I would definitely recommend you to return deep, because you're keeping your serving team way away from the non-volley zone line. I'll be very clear, the team which dominates the non-volley zone line wins, and if they're not at the non-volley zone line, keep them away from it as much as possible. Returning deep allows you to do that, simply because your opponent has to wait, and the person who's returning is also at the non-volley zone line immediately, along with their partner, which puts a lot of pressure on the serving team to try and hit whatever shot they're going to hit, a lob, or drive, or a drop shot. Whatever they're trying to implement puts a lot of pressure when you have two of their opponents right at the kitchen line waiting for them to punch on any bad balls which they're going to give you. So hitting a returning deep allows you a lot of time, and if you hit a loopy return in a very slow, in a slow manner, you have more time to get to the kitchen line. And I often say, that's a fundamental philosophy of mine. I always say that do everything and anything which buys you time. And if it doesn't buy you time, then probably find a different solution.
And I think even aside from keeping the serving team back, the fact that it gives you time to get up to the line to meet your partner up there is even more important, because whoever dominates the line throughout the game or throughout the point is probably going to win the point.
No doubt.
And I'll add that especially playing against harder hitters or bangers, you return it shorter, you give the serving team a very good opportunity to drive the ball. Like if it goes into no person's land, they can just come up and drive the ball. They don't even have to think about a third shot drop. And returning deep certainly combats this, or makes it easier to combat for the returning team.
Yes, definitely that will help a lot. And hitting a softer one means that you're forcing your opponent to actually generate the speed. So that's definitely something which I would definitely recommend you to go for. A deep, a soft return would allow you a lot of time, but also forces your opponent to actually generate all the speed to return the ball back.
And now we're up to number 4, and this is where you maybe got a reputation, Prane. Because specifically it says third shot equals drop shot. And before we correct your reputation, why use the drop on your third shot?
I definitely don't say that you have to use the drop shot always on the third shot. I make it very clear. I call it the drop shot, and I never call it the third shot drop. Let me be very clear. The third shot is basically the shot after the serve and the return. It's the third shot where the serving team is about to return the ball back to their opponents, and they have a lot of options at that point. They can drive the ball, they can drop the ball into the non-volley zone line, or they can lob over their opponents. Now, having said that, we just look at the most effective one. The drop shot is most effective, dropping into the kitchen line. But having said that, you'll have to be very, very clear when you drop. I always say is you drop the shot or the drop shot a ball. If it be the third ball or the fifth ball or the seventh ball, you drop it only if the opponents are at the kitchen line. If they're not at the kitchen line, please do not bring them in. If you see one of your opponents has returned and is lingering on the back, go back to them. Try hitting the ball back at their feet. Do not bring them in. Clear. There's no need for them to hit a drop shot at that point. So please don't hit a drop shot because someone told you how to hit the drop shot on your third ball. The drop shot is only effective if your opponents are at the kitchen line, simply because it forces them to wait for the ball to bounce and it gives you time to get to the kitchen line. But if the opponents are not at the kitchen line, never bring them in. Period.
Yeah, so just to clear up your reputation, you don't always recommend doing the third shot drop.
No, absolutely not.
And it's actually, you only use it when your opponents are already at the line.
That's right.
And actually, in your upcoming book about the drop shot, there's a specific chapter that talks about when to use the drop shot and when you should not use the drop shot.
Yeah, I do definitely talk a lot about when to drop it, and thanks to Randy, who actually co-wrote it. So most of that has got a lot of information about when to drop and when not to drop. And one of those is important is that when your opponents are not at the line, never drop it.
We're over halfway there, and before we get to number 5, participants do a whole lot of drop shots at the boot camps, plus a whole lot more. 4 days, 7 sessions, 15 plus hours of coaching with only 8 participants in the States. And that's just the coaching part of it. And I'll repeat this again in a moment, but if you use coupon code WEBINAR, not only will you receive $500 off for your boot camp in the States, but you're one of the first 10 participants to sign up. You'll receive a half-hour FaceTime or Skype session with Prame, a $300 value for absolutely free. And you can use it before or after boot camp, but Prame, tell everyone how this works, because it's not just you and a player talking about the latest Avengers movie with that half an hour of FaceTime. How does that half an hour of FaceTime or Skype work?
Oh, I don't know anything about the Avengers movie for sure. As far as the half an hour FaceTime goes, generally how it works is like, you set up whenever you're playing, you set up your phone or have someone film you as I'm actually watching your match, FaceTime, Skype, or whatever it is. I watch it, I give you real time inputs on, I ask them where to place the phone so that I can get to see the whole angle. see you from the back and also from the front, so that to see you on both sides. So like play a few points and then switch over to the other side so that I get to see the whole game. I mean, the whole perspective, and then I'll give you live commentary after that. And so that's how the half an hour is actually dealt with. Is like what I see and what is something which you're struggling with and what would help.
And like I mentioned, you can use it before or after boot camp. You can use it before boot camp to get some pointers before you come, or you can use it after boot camp. So that way someone could see, okay, Prem, what am I doing right? What am I doing wrong now that I had all that coaching from you and everything?
Yeah, absolutely. The choice is totally where our how our participants want to have it before or after. I'll be there as much as possible and as much as you guys want me to keep helping and supporting your progress.
And just let everyone know our upcoming boot camp schedule. We have Sacramento that starts on September 20th, Dallas, Texas, October 25th, Tucson, Arizona, November 13th. Speaking of which, there's only 4 spots left in Sacramento. There's only 3 spots left now in the Tucson, Arizona one. We have 3 Vero Beach boot camps coming up, January 10th,
Excuse me.
January 24th, and February 14th. There's only 4 spots left for the Vero Beach one for February the 14th. And then we've re-signed up for Richmond on May 15th, and then Costa Rica, April 11th through the 18th.
It's a fun experience. I mean, all of them are really beautiful destinations and beautiful places to teach pickleball. I got the wonderful experience of teaching in Costa Rica this year, and I'm looking forward to doing it again next year. And great venue, great host, great food, lovely beaches, and it's Bay Cave with pickleball, lots of pickleball.
And if you sign up, we'll go ahead and give you the half an hour of FaceTime. There is no discount for the Costa Rica one because it's already discounted to $1,600. And you're also getting accommodations, food. They pick you up from the Liberia airport and bring you to the resort and take you back. And it's all for only $1,600. So that's a pretty good deal for 7 days of a pickleball boot camp plus accommodations. I think the only thing you're on the hook for is airfare for that.
That's not very expensive, actually. Some of them are not, actually.
No, it's
Yeah.
it's a great deal. Links are in the show notes. Otherwise, head over to pickleballguru.com/bootcamp to register for any of these boot camps. For the Costa Rica boot camp, like I mentioned, we can't discount it anymore because it's already a destination, meaning your accommodations and food are already paid for, and it's already discounted to $1,600. For the States, coupon code WEBINAR gets you $500 off our list price in $19.97. Webinar X2 if registering with a partner for $600 off. Webinar X3, and this is nuts, if there's 3 or 4 of you registering together, that's $750 off for each of you. Plus, be one of the first 10 registrants tonight and receive that half an hour of FaceTime with Prem, a value of $300.
Absolutely amazing. In fact, I just got done with a one-on-one with Prem, and he made one physical mechanical change in my paddle position, and I was able to return all his sizzle balls. So, I mean, it was amazing. He's straight to the point, very gracious at the same time, doesn't demean anyone, makes it fun, and his wealth of knowledge is just out of this world. I mean, you can't stump the guy, that's for sure. I talked to this guy named Randy, and he told me about the one-on-one attention that Prem gives you, and that was very attractive. I did not want to go into an environment where there was 30 people and being trained or the instruction was coming from underlings. That's probably not a good word to use, but I've come to know who Prem Carnot is via his website and his, the programs that he and Randy do over the internet. So just listening to him, you know the guy is a professional. He's just amazing. Once I did my research, I made a couple calls to people. I looked at different websites, different instructors, and once I decided and saw the big picture of the SMART Pickleball program that Prem has, it was a no-brainer. Absolutely, without question, it will launch you into a different plateau of pickleball in 4 days. And I'm only in my third day.
And again, back to our regularly scheduled programming. We're up to number 5. And number 5 is move up to the kitchen fast. And this seems to relate to your past 2 principles. Why get to the line fast, Prane? Why not just bang back at the baseline and hope for the best?
As I mentioned before, I've never seen any team win from the baseline. You might probably get a couple of points here and there, but no one really wins from staying at the baseline. The game is pretty much won and lost at the non-volley zone line. The team at the kitchen line always wins, and the reason simply is because when you're closer to the net, you have more vision of the court on the other side. Further away from the net you are, that's only very little part of the distance you're going to see, and that's only targets you have. So you're actually further away means that you have very little space you're hitting to, whereas closer to the net, you have more space to hit to. So being at the kitchen line is so important, being absolutely fundamentally important. But having said that, don't rush it at the kitchen line just because someone told you had to be at the kitchen line right off the bat. Make your way in a smart way. Progress. If you hit a bad shot, then try it again till you get to the kitchen line in a way which allows you to be there. But just don't keep whacking and whacking and hoping that you'll get to the kitchen line. Or someone told you if your partner is going to hit the ball, you should rush at the kitchen line. That's a pretty bad strategy.
And an additional big tip for this, especially if you're the serving team and you're trying to get to the line fast, the other thing to say is get to the line quickly and safely.
And smartly.
And smartly. And by smartly, maybe if, for example, if I'm the one that's taking the third shot, you should not just immediately rush up to the line.
I might probably do that because you're so prominent with your drop shot. You're prominent with your drop shot all the time. But having said that, most of the time I would wait for him to, do what he's going to do. And if his drop shot, is he feels that he's confident enough that he has hit a perfectly good drop shot, he's going to move, and I'm going to move with him. Does that make sense?
Yes, because we were playing earlier today here in Denver, and I noticed a couple of times players they saw their partner was taking it, and they would immediately just rush up to the line.
That's
got a little bit burned on it. So
that's probably a good suggestion if you're probably playing the pros.
Right.
You probably that 9 out of 10 times they're probably going to put the ball where they want to put it.
So that takes us up to number 6. If they're back, keep them back. If they're deep, keep them deep. And you say paddle up a lot. And when you see someone make a drop when an opponent is deep, you also growl at them, keep them back. Don't bring them in.
That is definitely a very important one. As I said, if your opponent is in the back, they are trying to hit an impossible shot from that place. Next time when you go to the court, here's a suggestion I would make. You stay safe in the no person's line or even at the baseline. And from that place, what amount of court space do you see over the net on the other side? I'll guarantee you're pretty much only seeing the last third of the court, of your opponents. And as you start drifting towards the kitchen line, all of a sudden, I'm talking about over the net. Just imagine it's a black screen. The net is a black screen. You can't see through the net. And anything over the net, that basically means that's the zone you're going to hit balls to, because it's over the net. And so further closer to the net you are, more court you will see. And you start stepping back, you'll start seeing a lot lesser amount of court. That means that's the only places you can hit to over the net. And that means you're actually losing a lot more than that. So if you don't see your opponent at the non-volley zone line, please have them back. Let them enjoy their stay up there on the baseline.
And when you talk about how much space on the court that you're able to see, what you're also saying is that gives you more options in where you're going to place the ball.
When you're at the kitchen line, it gives you a lot more options to do that.
And in rec play, I don't do any coaching or recommendations or anything like that unless someone specifically asks for it. But the other day, a friend of mine, we were playing and we were at the line and he tried to drop him short. And what do you think happened?
The other person came in and you just tried it?
Even worse.
hit it
into the net.
Okay.
Twice into the net. And I said, keep them back. And he just laughed and said it's just too juicy to pass up. I can count 4 things that happen when you drop them, and 3 of them are bad. So keeping them back is not only safe, but it's actually a pretty effective strategy for the
It
most
is
part.
very, very effective strategy. Opponents are back, they are on the defense. If they're at the kitchen line, they are on the offense. So if they're on the back, that means they're on a defensive line, which means it's all power to you. But if you bring them in, trouble starts.
And that takes us to number 7. And this is one I modified a bit because you said never hit up. And I put a slash on it and added force your opponents to hit up.
Yes, I agree with you. I'm thinking through when he was telling me the question, so I was just thinking it through.
So why do you say force your opponents to hit up, and why you should never hit up, Prane? Or try not to hit up?
Well, if you're hitting it up, that means you're giving your opponent a wonderful lollipops to smash at you. So you gotta have to force your opponent to hit up, which allows you to be in a position where you can dictate the point. But if you're having your opponent actually hitting, down towards you, then you're pretty much not dictating it at all.
And that's why my modification was this, to force your opponents to hit up, simply because to make your own unattackable dink, you may have to hit up a little bit yourself.
Yes.
Would you like to elaborate on that, Prane?
Generally, generally when your opponents are, if you hit it up, you're forcing your opponent to start hitting it also up. But that's the strategy of when generally the play is you keep forcing your opponent to hit it up in that particular position. You're always in control. Whereas when you start having your opponent have a ball where it's high enough for them to when the sidearm action comes over or an overhead position comes, then trouble starts. So yeah, hitting it up is always going to be a good option, and forcing your opponent to also hit it up, as long as you force him to hit it up too, him or her to hit it up.
But the other point of this is there's a term, you bring up, the Weinbach is the one that brought it up. It's an unattackable dink is the term that he uses. And a good point of that is even though you think it's a good dink, your opponent may not have to hit up on it, just because if it's just deep enough and if it's just high enough, on the face of it, it may look like a good dink, but it's not really forcing your opponent to hit up on it, is it?
No, it doesn't really. And so it's really important, give an attackable dink, as Dave says, because it's a really good point. Sometimes from the outside it might look the ball is nice and loopy, but actually when it comes on the other side of the net, it's really dipping in, and which forces your opponent to wait for the ball, which allows you to come in and start dominating from the kitchen line. So yes, definitely give yourself a lot of safety when you're hitting drop shots or dinks. You don't have to go razor sharp over the net, just basically over the net. Give yourself about even a foot and a half over the net, so that it's still going to land shallow and force your opponent to hit upward ball.
And that's the key, shallow, making them forcing them to step into the kitchen, and likewise forcing them to hit up on the ball.
That's right.
So there you have it, the 7 principles of the guru. Here's a quick recap. 1, paddle up. 2, serve deep. 3, return deep. 4, third shot equals a drop shot if
your opponents are at the kitchen line.
If your opponents are at the kitchen line. 5, get to the kitchen fast and
keep them back.
Get to the kitchen fast as well as safely.
And smartly.
And smartly. Number 6 is keep them back, which you said. And number 7, force them to hit up. In doing all this, you're going to play smarter and not harder. And as I mentioned, we've got some amazing offers for the clinics and boot camps going on right now. Brand new destination boot camp in Costa Rica, crazy savings on boot camps in the States, and a $300 FaceTime off with Prame for the first 10 registrants that you can use before or after boot camp. And we have that 10% off a clinic discount that ends midnight Saturday, And for the half an hour FaceTime with Prem, it's the first 10 registrants tonight. So for the boot camps in the States, coupon code webinar gets you $500 off our list price of $19.97, webinar X2 if registering with a partner $600, and the amazing $750 off webinar X3 if it's 3 or 4 people registering together. And I'll put our contact information up in a moment, as well as the registration info, because I hear the music playing. I'll ask if you've got anything else here for us, Prem.
As usual, just go to the pickleball court and have fun. And remember, it's only pickleball.
If you want an awfully cool Dink Tee t-shirt or a Smart Pickleball t-shirt or even a Guru cap, you can find all those on our webpage under Guru Gear. There's also a link to that in the show notes. Plus, if you really want some really good discounts on a club t-shirt or a tournament t-shirt, if you're an ambassador or a tournament director, you'll find information about this down below in the show notes where you can email Dink Tee. Now I don't have anything else. Do you have anything else, Prem?
Nothing else. Excited about more pickleball.
Thanks, Prem. Take care and hope to see everybody on the courts.
Thank you.